Mike Fox should be a household name in America. It is not often that a state legislator can change the face of a country's educational system with a single piece of state legislation. But that's exactly what Mike Fox did when in 1995 the Ohio General Assembly passed his bill establishing an experimental program in Cleveland of giving parents vouchers for education that they could use in either public or private schools. In June 2002, the United States Supreme Court rejected legal challenges to the Cleveland Vouchers Plan in a landmark ruling that made Mike Fox's plan for public funding of private education a role model for the nation. Mike Fox served for nearly 23 years in the Ohio House of Representatives, representing Hamilton and Butler County in Ohio's 59th Legislative District, and chairing the House Education Committee, during which time it's no exaggeration to say that he was one of the most controversial names in the Ohio political landscape. Let's hear from the man whose vouchers plan was praised by President Bush as clearing the way for other innovative school choice programs so that no child in America will be left behind. In other words, let's hear Mike Fox, the father of school vouchers, speak about public education.
I think it comes down to a philosophical slant. The traditional school folks look at schools as the public school system. And if you look at the public school system as being only one paradigm, as what we've all grown up, particularly the baby boomers in the 50s, is there's a school, everybody goes to it, the school gets the money, the school makes the decisions, the school decides who your teacher is, the school decides what the curriculum is, etc. That is the public school system, as that's the paradigm. We come along in the 80s and in the 90s and say, let's change the paradigm and not look at public education as a public school system, but rather as a system of public schools. And those public schools can look different in each community, in each neighborhood. And we're going to empower individual teachers and administrators and organizations and universities and other community groups to say, I want to create and direct and control for parents to bring their children to this school, and I want to use public funds to enable them to get a public education in a different type of model. The one that brought this home to me most directly was Yvonne Chen, that was one of the leaders and was on 60 Minutes and out in Los Angeles, and here she was, a 25-year teacher and principal in the Los Angeles Unified School District. She had a school in the poorest area of the Watts area of Los Angeles. She was one of the first charter schools in the United States, and when I was talking to Ms. Chen at one of the conferences some years ago, and I said, and when she got the opportunity to make it a charter school, she took the same school with the same kids in the same neighborhood, and their grades in 1 year jumped dramatically. And I asked her, what accounted for that? Why was that? And she says, well, in the old system, my time as principal was spent dealing with two things: discipline and with grievances. If I said we were going to have ungraded for the first 3 years, that was a bargaining negotiation. It would take years to get that done. She said, in the new school, I said, look, here's how we do it here. If you want to be a teacher in this school, here's our philosophy. Now, there are other ways to do it, and there are other schools that will apply that, that'll be a good fit. But here, we do it this way. And she said, being able to get a unified mission on her staff and not have to worry about the bureaucracy of the large system, and to be able to develop partnerships with the parents, enabled her to focus on what the core mission of the school should be, which is how are we doing in helping our children learn. And as a result of that idea, her kids learned a lot more than they would have. Now, will that happen in every instance? No, because that flexibility part also means you have the right to fail. And there are going to be failures. The difference is, if you're in a charter system or a voucher system and you fail, people, the word gets out, and the market pressures generally put you out of business eventually, and we've had a lot of them put out of business. If you're in the public school and you fail, as when I was chair of the Education Committee, we looked at 46 elementary buildings in the 8 largest school districts in Ohio where not one child passed our proficiency test in 4th and 6th grade, not one. You know, I suggested at one point, why don't you just have a staff meeting and say, let's adopt one child this year and get at least one to pass the test. And so what happened in those schools when they failed? They just kept doing it and doing it and doing it. Now, the synergistic effect, and I think this is critical, is we focus on, well, how did the charter school do? How did the, how did the voucher school do? The other part of that is, what is the effect? And right here in Hamilton, I had this discussion about 6 years ago with, they were concerned that they were losing kids to this over-the-line technology, ECOT. Mm-hmm. And one of the administrators here, longtime administrators in Hamilton, still there, wonderful person, turned to the superintendent and said, really, look, the proposition we're facing here is very simple. How many children in our school system are we willing to lose to our competition until we change the way we do business? And I think that proposition becomes a force that drives change in the traditional public school model. Just the idea of losing a small percentage of the kids to these charters and voucher schools creates an energy, a new dynamic, that things will happen that otherwise would not have happened to make the schools better.